Stephen.
Good, Larry.
Good to go?
Good.
Great. I want to call back to order the Associates Inc. This Thursday, January 28th, 2021. The board met in executive session, and I'm now reconvening the recessed meeting. I'm pleased to welcome those property owners who may be watching our meeting live or who may review the proceedings at a later time. As I noted in my monthly email, this year's board meetings will have a slightly different look from those we have conducted in the past. Because we've scheduled the board to meet monthly, other than during the heritage and the summer months, and to provide the most efficient means for getting information from our outstanding CSA staff and board committees, we're going to combine the old community coffees with our board meetings and make both more effective. So today, you will hear primarily from our CSA senior staff. Since none of our board committees have yet met this year, there will be no committee reports. And in the future, we will again feature reports to the board and the community from our CSA senior staff, with committee reports only on those items that are ready for consideration and action at the board. All of these meetings will be open to the public, and we will happily respond to written questions from the community at the end of each meeting. Sam and I will use our bi-monthly emails to report on items that are under active consideration on our committees, but not yet ripe for action, so that the community will be regularly informed of both the staff and board committee activities without duplicating reports at our monthly open meetings. So we hope that this will be an effective way to get the staff reports and our committee work out to the public. With that, I know we have a very busy agenda, so let's get started. Before we start, I do want to remind folks that we will be taking questions at csacpines.com. That's in questions@csacpines.com, and we will take those questions through the end of the meeting, at which point we'll take a very short recess and move directly into your questions. So if you have questions that come up during the meeting or that you've thought about regarding what's gone on at the meeting, please send them to questions@csacpines.com. With that, I want to note that during the executive session, we went through a number of matters of pending litigation and created a legal committee that we have authorized to manage our various pieces of litigation that will make it more effective. That was what we did in executive session. I want to move next to the Board of Directors meeting minutes of November 17th, 2020, the special meeting of December 8th, 2020, and the organizational meeting minutes of January 12th, 2021. All of you had an opportunity to read those minutes by email. Are there any changes or concerns with any of the minutes as they were sent to you? If not, I will entertain a motion to ratify the approval of those minutes, all of them. Mr. Pardue, a second. Mr. Ellis, any discussion? If not, all in favor of ratifying the approval of those minutes, please raise your hands. Anybody opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. With that, I'm going to save my opening remarks until we get to a later item, so we can move directly into the president's remarks and the directors.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My remarks at this point will be very brief. We've asked the directors to take a look at last year, an interesting, challenging year for all of us. They will be discussing how last year went for them, and then we will be talking at our next meeting at where we're headed for 2021. So with that, I would hold my other remarks until a later item on the agenda, and I would ask for Amanda, if you would please give the community your report.
Happy to do it. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Larry, and the rest of the board as well. For those of you who don't know me, watching the live stream, my name is Amanda Sutcliffe-Jones, and I am your CSA Director of Communications. Thank you for having me today. As Sam noted, reviewing 2020, the Communications Department to continue to improve our member communications by increasing the frequency of our updates provided by our CSA Board Chairman, Larry Moshfam, as well as our CSA President, Sam Bennett. We also focused on streamlining our format of our weekly email communications. We certainly hope you guys found that helpful and continue to find it helpful. Again, if you're not signed up to receive our email communications, we'd be happy to get you on our distribution list. You can reach out to staff directly. You can email us at info@csacpines.com. You can call the admin office at 843-671-1343. Or you can also go online. We've moved a lot of our service requests and ability to do certain things online. So you can update your contact information with us on our website at www.cpinesliving.com/request. In 2020, we also began live streaming the CSA board meetings through our YouTube channel, much like you're joining us at this meeting right now. We did that to be able to increase the reach and accessibility of the board meetings to all members. So we hope that was helpful. We began including board meeting recaps and links to the board meeting videos in our weekly email communications to keep our members updated on board activities. We assisted with the communications regarding the 2020 Infrastructure Improvements Fund referendum. And we also moved our annual meeting to a digital platform in 2020, mostly due to COVID, certainly because of the challenges there, but that was originally planned in May, but pushed back to October. So we look forward to continuing to provide that annual meeting via this platform as well in 2021. Finally, we continue to provide communication assistance to our various CSA departments as well as the board of directors. And as we look into 2021 and beyond, we're excited to continue to work hand in hand, not only with the CSA Communications Committee, the staff of CSA, as well as the board as we set up communication goals for the remainder of the year. That's all I have, Sam.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Victoria Shanahan, please. Let's see, Larry, we need to move the camera for.
Okay, sorry.
It's okay. Wow.
I'll zoom out a little bit.
Yes, please. Thank you, Larry. I'll be brief. The Finance and Administration Department is continuing to expand our enterprise-wide software system to try and incorporate all the departments with a single database. Our annual assessment invoices were generated out of that system, which allows us to be a lot more efficient with collection, reporting, and remittance. It's also a cost savings as a transaction savings. As I mentioned, we're trying to gather all the departments into this software. So I put together a quick little slide to just give you one example of what we've been able to do. Double share. All right. So, can I move this? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so you need a mailbox for your house. Okay, so you call down to the maintenance department and you say that you need a mailbox. So they key that information into the system and they send out a work order and they go and replace your mailbox. So then they have to key it in again so that they can send you an invoice. And then you pay your invoice. It has to be keyed in again in order to get that revenue into the income statement. Well, now you can either email it in or use your phone or text, and they get it and they email it in one time, and you get your mailbox, your invoice, and you get the revenue and the income statement. So we're making lots of progress. And how do I stop share?
The red to the right.
Oh, there I see. Thank you. Okay. And finally, I did want to mention that at the gates this year, we issued 329,000 passes that were sold at the gates. Of that number, 209 were daily visitors. That seems just astronomical, but in comparison to 19, we issued 360,000 passes and 250 daily. I thought that was information I wanted to share with you. And that's all I have. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you, Victoria. Greatly appreciate your effort, your team efforts in that system-wide software, the efficiencies that go along with it, and there are more opportunities to add additional efficiencies, which we'll be doing over the course of 2021, as well as the efforts of keeping up with the gates and the vast numbers of folks that come through that gate. So
Absolutely.
thank you. Russell Fredericks. Russell, you're on mute.
How's that, Sam?
Yes, sir. Sound good. Thank you. Russell, you've gone back to mute for some reason.
Obviously, we're having technical difficulties here, but I will try to continue and be brief. Thank you, Sam, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just wanted to highlight a few projects from 2020 that our maintenance department was working on. As we know, 2020 was especially a challenging year for us all. We had completed the Greenwood Drive construction phase 2 from Governor's Road to Plantation Drive, which included drainage enhancements and improvements, as well as roadway resurfacing and reconstruction, and the reconfiguration of Plantation Drive and Greenwood intersection. We also completed the Lighthouse Road resurfacing project. And we, in addition to the resurfacing of the road, we also added quite a bit of drainage down there in the Harbortown area to improve some of the situations that we're having along that roadway. In 2020 as well, we completed the line striping of Sea Pines Drive from Ocean Gate to South Beach, the resurfacing of Ruddy Turnstone Road. The big project that we really made inroads on was the Greenwood Drive Leisure Trail from Plantation Drive to South Sea Pines, adding kiosk pull-off pads, as well as relining the leisure trail in many areas. Other projects that we worked on throughout the year were the Baynard Cove railing replacement on Sea Pines Drive, the Sea Pines Drive survey from Lighthouse Road to Land's End. That information is critical for future projects in Sea Pines. Beach Boardwalk 47 replacement, as well as working on the North Sea Pines roadway and leisure trail engineering, leading us up to the current project that we're working on today. As we all know, the infrastructure in Sea Pines has been greatly impacted through the years from storms and age of our system. We've continued to work with the town of Hilton Head throughout 2020 as well into 2021 on several significant projects, including Canvasback Road, South Beach in proximity to the Salty Dog, Sandhill Crane. The Lawton Pump Station is also a major project the town has undertaken in coordination with CSA. Several elements of Wren Pond, which is in proximity to Lagoon Villas. We've done some dredging down there, as well, also working on some pipe replacement. Then Mizamest and Genoa Courts, we are about to break ground on some drainage repairs in that area, as all those pipes underneath those roads are greatly deteriorated. Other projects for 2021 that we're going to get started on in the coming weeks is ditch cleaning at several key areas throughout the community. These ditches have not been touched in many, many years and need great attention to keep stormwater flowing throughout our community. Other projects include Beach Boardwalks number 18 and what we've called 35A, which is in Beach Lagoon. I did mention the North Sea Pines Drive construction. We have broken ground at Lighthouse and Sea Pines as what we're referring to as phase 1, which include roadway realignment, curbing, restriping of the road, drainage improvements, realignment of the leisure trail. So as you pass through that area, I do ask to just use some caution as those crews will be working out in the roadway. Those conclude my remarks, and thank you very much.
Russell, thank you for all the work that you and your team have done this past year and all the work that we're going to be taking place in 2021. Toby McSwain. Oh, I apologize, Toby. I apologize, David Henderson. David, my apologies to you. David Henderson.
Thank you, Sam. Quick quick 2020 highlights for special projects and operations. In 2020, we worked with our maintenance department and our contractor to continue the multi-year process of replacing and upgrading community signage to new standards. In 2020, signage was upgraded within the Lighthouse Road and Greenwood Drive Phase 2 reconstruction project footprints that Russell mentioned. Work also began to upgrade signage at Fraser Circle and where our leisure trails cross primary roadways. We couldn't talk about 2020 without talking about COVID. And as everyone listening has likely experienced in their own lives, our operations here at CSA have evolved as a result of COVID. On the administration side, we went from many employees working at home to now providing in-person services under modified protocols. While COVID has presented challenges, administrative services continued, including issuing hang tags for the RVC Heritage, ID cards, new owner processing, assessments, and decal replacement and renewal. Our objective throughout this process has been to provide the community a high level of service while keeping our staff, the boards and committees, and our customers safe. And I would like at this time to acknowledge security and maintenance who throughout this entirety of the pandemic continued to provide the essential services that the community relies on. Switching gears to the community center, it remained closed through the end of 2020, but we were able to make accommodations when social distancing could be maintained and monitored. And some specific examples of this included the general elections, art exhibits, blood drives, and library visits. Switching gears to the administration building, considerable efforts were made to make the office environment as safe as possible during this pandemic. Where necessary, workstations were repositioned to promote social distancing and plexiglass barriers installed. Office visits are by appointment only, and the majority of services are being provided at the door. Employees are required to wear a face mask when in common areas or when social distancing cannot be maintained. Catchy flyers remind employees to remain vigilant, and lots of soap and sanitizing gel has been utilized. But like virtually all organizations our size, we have had multiple employees test positive for the virus. Thankfully, no serious health issues have arisen, and to the best of our knowledge, there have been no cases of direct transmission between employees. For Six Oaks Cemetery in 2020, we were able to make significant contributions to the Perpetual Care Trust, which will be utilized in the future to continue our high maintenance standards. We dedicated a new Catholic section, and we continued to provide a high level of service to our families and provided the guidance necessary to allow for in-person services. And finally, for Six Oaks, we were able to host our 11th annual Wreaths Across America ceremony. For Tower Beach, as you may appreciate, the beach environment is very hard on buildings, furniture, and fixtures. And in 2020, the pavilion picnic tables and 8 light fixtures were replaced. Due to the pandemic, signage was installed to encourage social distancing and patience. The boardwalks were signed to require one-way travel, which with the exception of occasionally overhearing someone yell, "You're going the wrong way," was well received. The one-way boardwalks are still in place today. The covered pavilion area was closed but reopened after a couple months. Reservations are now available for the pavilion, but group size is limited to 30 people. There was a noticeable increase in the utilization of Tower Beach, presumably due to owners wanting to safely enjoy the wide open spaces the beach provides. And while I cannot qualify the increase in visitation, I can tell you that the use of pet waste disposal bags has never been greater. I'd like to finish up with the Forest Preserve. In 2020, the visitation to the preserve was also very high, as residents and guests alike sought to replace the stress and anxiety of COVID with exercise and tranquility, even if just for a little while. We completed the new driving entrance off of Greenwood Drive. We also performed our annual initiatives such as map and calendar printing, fish stocking, planting of the wildflower field, and trail maintenance. We continued implementation of our land management plan, which has the primary objective of improving the habitat for a variety of wildlife species and increasing outdoor recreation opportunities. And lastly, COVID forced the cancellation of the Party in the Pines, our community yard sale, and the bonfire events. But the entire Sea Pines community rose to the challenge during our time of need. The Sea Pines Forest Preserve Foundation received support from the Salty Dog, the Sea Pines Resort, Lawton Stables, the Architecture Review Board, and last but not least, residential property owners. We sincerely appreciate the support and hope you take the opportunity to visit our natural treasure soon. That concludes my report, Sam.
David, thank you very much for that report and for all the hard work this year. David was tasked very early in the year with being our COVID czar to help us migrate the waters of COVID to keep our employees safe and to keep the organization functioning. And he's done an outstanding job. And we appreciate you taking on that task, David. Toby McSwain.
Good afternoon, everyone. Just a quick update from safety, security, and transportation. I was really hoping that, and as well as probably you guys as well, that we would start 2021 off in a much better position than last year. But unfortunately, COVID-19, as you know, continues to be a challenge for us all. We have had, as David mentioned, security staff members that's been infected, and we currently have staff members that are out right now with positive tests. Thank goodness. We really haven't been infected in a widespread all at once, but we have been able to maintain our operation because we all work very closely here with close quarters, sharing equipment, not to include the vehicles themselves. In the uniform patrol, for 2020, we serviced 29,985 calls for service last year, which was 356 calls fewer than in 2019. Our index crime is which the FBI grades all law enforcement agencies, which is your murders, your rapes, your robberies, your larceny type stuff, still remain low for a community of our size. The residential burglaries, grand larcenies for 2020 were lower than it had been in previous years. We also had 23 fewer traffic collisions in 2020 than the previous year. Our state citation and warning tickets are low in comparison to previous years. As we continue to certify officers in the operation and the use of the radar, I look for those numbers to increase. Our upcoming challenge is going to be the backlog of cases of tickets that we have written for court. Currently, Beaufort County Magistrate Courts are not operating and they're not hearing any criminal or traffic related cases. This past year with our manpower shortages, we hired a private security firm, which I'm sure many of you saw, to assist us with calls for service in the Harbortown area, at the Beach Club and at the Salty Dog at South Beach. This service started the week of the RBC Heritage in June, and it continued through the end of August. However, for this year, we have not started off on such a good note. On January the 14th, we had 14 car break-ins in one day in the club course area. We are working closely with the sheriff's office and locating the suspects involved. We do have descriptions of these individuals. And as always, I've said many times before, we encourage all property owners to keep all doors, that's both vehicles and their homes, locked at all times. Security administration, staff in the front office continue to work and handle the requests under this COVID restricted environment. Customers are not allowed in the building, and we ask that those requests for service be submitted online or just by a brief telephone call here to the office. There is a slight delay if someone's requesting a decal, but staff continues to work efficiently and effectively as possible under the restrictions. We are in our new yearly decal renewal process, and to date, as of today, we've issued a little over 3,000 decals since the beginning of January, which is about 1,000 fewer than we did last year. Not sure if this is really it's COVID related, where the business are just no longer operating, or we don't really know what the circumstances are, but we are 1,000 fewer cases or decals from last year. The gatehouse operations continue to work well under the restrictions. They've been very busy. As Victoria mentioned, we've issued over 360,000 passes at the gates, and they continue to function at a full capacity. The Welcome Center, no less busy, also dealt with infections of staff members as well. They continue to work to keeping up with the high rental demand. We are planning for an extremely busy rental season this year. Many of the short-term rental companies I've contacted are reporting that they're at 100% capacity of rental properties through July. So we're expecting a really big season. In 2020, the Welcome Center issued 345,000 passes at the Welcome Center. To give you kind of just a breakdown of numbers, 66,000 of those were rental pass companies, 89,000 to our property owners' guests. Sea Pines Resort passes, 34,000. The Inn at Harbortown, 18,000 passes. Grand Ocean Marriott, 37,000 passes. So the Welcome Center has been quite busy. Trolley operations are planned to start on March 22nd, providing service to the beach club from Lot 8, where we operated from last year. Then in May, we plan to put the full trolley schedule online. In 2020, we did operate the trolleys under a limited capacity on only allowing only 50% of the trolley to be filled at any one time. Not sure if this is really as an impact of the restriction of allowing people on the trolley or COVID, but we had very, very low ridership in 2020. We moved 19,550 people last year. And when you compare that to a full year's operation, non-COVID year, in 2019, we moved 93,000 people on the trolleys during the season. So hardly anybody rode the trolleys last year. The trolleys will also operate during the week of the RBC Heritage, which is going to be held April 12th through the 18th. If you had the opportunity to catch the email today, they will be selling passes or tickets in a limited capacity. So we ask that you please pay close attention to the emails that will be coming out from CSA that will give the property owners the opportunity to purchase RBC Heritage tickets, because they are going to be limited. It's nowhere near going to be the year of the tournament that it has been in the past this year. I'm happy that they're having the tournament, and we will have some spectators. They can't continue to operate a year like they've had before. For Tower Beach, we started in March this past year, and it ran full-time through August. And from August until actually, as of right now, we have been operating an attendant at Tower Beach on Saturday and Sundays only. We'll do the same again this year, starting in March, and hopefully we have the staff available to be able to properly cover Tower Beach as it's needed. And as always, from my end, hiring, training, and retaining qualified personnel still remains my number one challenge. That's all I have, Sam.
Toby, thank you very much. We appreciate all the work that you and your team put in the last year and keeping the community safe and moving folks in and out through our community and across our community. Directors, that's the staff report. If anybody has any questions for any of the directors, I'm happy to answer those, or if you want any questions for later, happy to deal with those then. I do want to say on behalf of myself, to the staff directors, as well as to all the employees of CSA and to the community, we have a great group of women and men who work for CSA. They come to work every day and they make this community run, and I appreciate the work they do. They keep us safe. They keep the community moving. They keep it taken care of. And just want to thank them publicly for the work in 2020, and look forward to the opportunity that we have to make many improvements in 2021 and continue to move Sea Pines ahead. Mr. Chairman, that's my report, the staff report, excuse me.
Any board members have any questions for any of the staff members? If not, I know on behalf of the board, I want to echo the sentiments you just gave. We all greatly appreciate the staff that we have, the talent and the dedication they put in what are really been very difficult times thanks to COVID and all. Before I move on to the next item, I did forget two things I wanted to mention. One was, I got to move the picture to me. There you go. I'm never going to be a movie director. First, although they did attend the organizational meeting, I wanted to welcome to our first major business meeting our three directors who were elected last December. I want to welcome as a new director, Greg Thompson. Greg, wave your hand. There you are. I want to welcome back as a director after a year away, Charlie Miner. Charlie. And I want to congratulate Bill Johnson on being reelected to another term. Bill. And I also want to give thanks again to the directors who are not with us, who were with us last year. J.R. Richardson, who served a long 6-year term and was extremely valuable to us on NEMP, and Stu Rodman, who served for 3 years and was extremely valuable through government liaison as our treasurer for a year and also in our strategic planning. So thank you to those gentlemen. And I hope the community appreciates that we're trying to replicate in a very difficult COVID situation the community coffees without having too many of these Zoom meetings with the board and the staff. And I hope that we will be able to find the right balance between having staff reports and limiting our committee reports only to those areas where we need them. So with that, I will then move to our financial update. Mr. Borghese, our treasurer. I'll go off mute, off mute, off mute. There you go. There you go. There you go.
Yes. Thank you, and hello to everyone who has zoomed in. So quickly, let me say there's a couple of things that are going on. One of the things that we need to do today is to approve the annual engagement letter for our annual audit performed by our external auditors, Elliott Davis. Our engagement letter has been signed by Sam, myself, and Victoria in order to get the audit started, and preliminary field work was completed in November. Final field work will come about probably around mid-March, and we would expect to have audited financial statements sometime in April. I can report that the audit fee has been reduced from prior year, in large part because we have agreed to prepare the financial statements, which relieves a number of hours of professional time. And so a little more effort on our part will save the community some money. One other thing is that we have collected a substantial amount of residential property owner assessments. There are approximately 500 unpaid, which is about the same as prior years and not particularly troublesome at this time. We allow gate passes for unpaid assessments up until March 31st, at which point in time we will eliminate the ability for those unpaid to access gate passes for their friends or relatives. The other thing I'd like to mention that Victoria did not, as far as what the finance department did, the major thing that they did was to obtain a $1.1 million payroll protection plan loan from the SBA through the US government. That was a very substantial amount of money. That loan we have provided, we believe we've fully complied with the requirements for forgiveness. We have applied for forgiveness and provided all of the relevant documents. And like many others, we are still waiting to hear from the SBA, but we do believe that that loan will be forgiven. And so hats off again to Victoria. That's one thing I think she should have mentioned as being one of the really substantial things that were done by the finance department this past year. That's it for my, that would be it for my report. Thank you.
David, while we're on that, do you want to go ahead and move the resolution 11B in your packet? It's approval of the engagement for the auditor 2020. Resolved, Community Services Associates, Inc. Board of Directors approves engagement of Elliott Davis, LLC as auditor for CSA audit 2020.
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor, raise your hands. Any opposition? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Okay, well, that brings us to unfinished business and the update on referendum 2020. As I was pondering the announcement of the referendum results today, I looked back to my first message to the community last year as the new chairman of the board. In those remarks, I stressed 2 points. First, my view that well over 75% of our property owners recognized the need for long-term funding to repair and replace 50-year-old roads and stormwater systems. And second, I promised the community that this board would not continue to kick the can of repairs down the road as our proverbial roof was starting to collapse. And unless we found a source for the funds needed to fix our aging infrastructure, Sea Pines would not be able to retain our standing as the premier community on Hilton Head Island. Without detailing the most unusual and unique challenges we faced during 2020 in pursuing that funding and the amount of effort we put into trying to find the right way to get it. In the end, the voices of our property owners convinced us to attempt a simple referendum focused exclusively on our long-term capital requirements for repairing, rebuilding, and enhancing our roads, drainage systems, leisure trails, and bridges. And so today, I am very pleased to announce to the board and the community that our auditors have provided us with the results of voting on a proposed Fifth Amendment to the 1974 covenants that provides for a new separate assessment on residential property owners, the Sea Pines Resort, and our commercial property owners. Now, while the final certification of the official results will not be available until sometime next week, as our auditors complete their final auditing processes, which they typically do, which is they go through and sample ballots and make sure they got everything and didn't miss one or two. They have authorized us to announce the following final unofficial results, which we can deem as final. Out of the 5,351 ballots that were sent out to participating property owners, 75.6% of the ballots were returned. That's quite a return. And of those return ballots, the yes votes were 87.77%, while the no votes were only 12.23%. In other words, we well surpassed the 75% threshold. And that is a great congratulations. We want to thank the CSA team who worked so hard to encourage all property owners to cast their votes. And I want to send a very special thanks to the many, many members of the Sea Pines community who worked so hard through letters, emails, and word of mouth to encourage their neighbors and friends to cast a yes vote for the protection of our home investments and the revitalization of our community. This is obviously a wonderful accomplishment for the community, as an overwhelming majority of those voting, which interestingly enough also represents an impressive supermajority of all eligible voters, has confirmed the importance of rebuilding and maintaining Sea Pines as the first-class premier community on Hilton Head. I am personally hopeful, and I know the board shares this hope, that with the results of this referendum now clear, we can all come together as a community and unify behind the opportunities the creation of this new infrastructure fund provides to allow us to move on to our most critical problems, which is fixing our infrastructure, while we also now can turn to the other areas of our community that require evaluation and adjustments. So with that announcement, I am open to comments from any board members who would like to comment on the results we've just received. I know you're stunned. I know you're happy. Anyone want to make any further comments? If not, congratulations to the community. Congratulations to the members who voted for it. Congratulations to the staff who put such a good job together. And I think we are looking forward to moving on and finally getting our long-term funding out of the way so we can move on to other important projects. With that, then I will move to new business. First item of business is the announcement of the date of record of the annual meeting of 2020. The date of record of the annual meeting will be March 8th. So if you are a property owner as of March 8th, you will be entitled to attend and vote at the annual meeting. Next, I want to ratify the approval that was done by email of the date of record of the referendum of 2020. I have a resolution that Community Services Associates Board of Directors ratifies approval of the resolution, the record date for participating property owners to vote on the referendum to approve the proposed Fifth Amendment to Declaration of Covenants and Restrictions by Sea Pines Plantation is hereby established as November 17, 2020, as finalized by email. Is there a motion to that effect? Mr. Ellis, Ms. Adams has seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the motion. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Next, we have in your packet amendments of certain committee memberships. We have new members are listed on the Finance Committee, Scott Callahan, and I believe that also on the is it strategic planning? We've added Mr. Rodman. On safety and security, we have added, Mr. Callahan is the safety and security. Land use management, I am very pleased to announce that Charlie Miner has accepted the chairmanship of that committee. Thank you, Charlie. And on finance, we've added, Sandra, do you know who?
There's no change to finance.
No, okay. Then do we have a motion to approve those new members to the committees? Mr. Barth, seconded by Mr. Caskey. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hands. Opposed? Next, we have 3 encroachment agreements, which are in your packet.
Larry,
Yes.
could you remind us, if we had a number of applicants that came through to be on committee, we placed all of them, correct? And we're
Yes.
just filling up the roster, right?
Everyone who applied this year, who filed an application this year was added to a committee. There are still a few committees that do not have the full complement of 9 non-board members. And if there are people out there who would like to apply, they should send in applications and we'll see if we can find a spot for them. In addition, as we've noted in our weekly report, we have created under the Forest Preserve Trust, a Forest Preserve Committee headed by Charlie Miner, which will be providing advice and ideas for the Forest Preserve Trust. If you're interested in that committee, please file an application for that. Mr. Miner will be filling the slots on that as well.
And this is our older year of moving to the rotation of the new third of the committee turning over every year. So this is the transition year to get there. So we're going to have the opportunity to continue to recruit and bring in talent into the organization.
Absolutely. Every year that every committee will have at least 3 people who will be up for renewal or for new slots. Thank you for reminding me, Jim. Okay, we do have 3 encroachment agreements to ratify. Is there any questions about any of them? If not, I'll accept the motion to approve all 3.
So moved.
Mr. Borghese, Mr. Caskey has seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, I will call the question. All in favor of approving those encroachments? Opposed? Great. We are going to recess for a short period of 5 minutes. We'll come back with questions from the community, and then we will go back into executive session for a short period to complete our discussion of legal matters. So we will be back at 10 minutes to, let's see, looking at the clock, at 10 minutes to, well, my watch says
This is 3:45, Larry. Let's say
3:45, we'll be back at 3:50.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. can we get everyone back? We're on, and Stephen, I'm ready to go back live when you are. I guess we are live. Can we get everyone back on and I'll start answering questions?
We're not live yet, Larry. Give me just a second.
We are live.
Are we live? Okay.
Okay, great. Well, thank you all for taking the short recess, allowing us to take that short recess. Because we cannot get together in the community center or elsewhere, where what we're hoping we can do through by answering questions is give people the same opportunity they would have had to stand up with a mic, but rather I'll be the microphone and I'll answer the questions and I'll certainly identify who it's from. And hopefully that will give people the sense that we're giving them an opportunity to speak to us and get their questions answered when we can answer them. The first question is from Peter Vero. Why not sell the gallery shops so we can get money for infrastructure work? As we've tried to discuss in past meetings, the gallery shops is an investment. We run our business, we run CSA by the revenue we get from gate passes, by the revenue we get from assessments, by other revenue we happen to get. And that's how we set our budget. When we need capital, and as we did this year, where we made a very difficult decision to go into our reserves beyond what we have in our regular revenue, we're reducing those reserves, and that's where we could get cash. But we need those reserves to be able, just in case we have a major disaster, or just from a practical standpoint, we have a certain level that we need to maintain. So what we did was we took stocks and bonds and turned it into real estate. This is no different than if you have a retirement and you've got a 401k. That 401k has a bunch of investments in it, and one day your investment advisor might say, sell some of your stocks and make it bonds. But what we did was we turned some of our bonds and stocks into real estate. So selling it tomorrow would simply increase our cash reserves, but it wouldn't necessarily provide any more money for infrastructure unless we were to again reduce our reserves. That was a one-time shot that we thought we needed to do given the time it was taking to get our referendum out, or whatever else we were going to do. Now that we have the referendum and we can start planning with the 2022 dollars, we hopefully are not going to need those reserves. But so selling the gallery shops wouldn't change where we are. So we don't have any immediate intent to sell the gallery shops for infrastructure. Whether we sell it will be because we decided to change the nature of our investments. And that would be a finance committee decision taken to the board. If it's not being sold, Peter asks, what's the plan for that place and what are the estimated costs to achieve the plan? I can tell you the plan is, and then I'll turn it over to Sam. The plan is, as it has been for some time, to get the town to allow us to raise it without losing our long-term developmental rights. We have been working with the town for some time. We will continue to work with the town. I'm going to turn to Sam to tell you where we are on that and generally what the cost for that would be. Once it's been raised and down to the ground, we'll decide what we want to do with it in terms of plantings and other things or whatever we decide. So Sam, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Larry. We are actively engaged with the town in determining the level of development rights we can keep on that site. The goal is to keep as many as possible. Our expectation is we're going to have that resolved in the middle of the second quarter of this year. And we will have a plan after that to raise the building if we're allowed to do that through the town. Certainly we will be. So I would anticipate second quarter of this year, we will have the permits we need from the town, the information we need from the town for the board to make the best decision on the path forward. But clearly we know that building needs to come down and it's going to come down. We are just trying to do our best to protect the most value for CSA and the community as we take the building down.
Sam, do you have a sense of the cost?
Sam, why is it taking so long to do that? Why do they need, I mean, they've been talking about this for a year. Why do they need 4 more months to figure this out?
Scott, it's us working through the town with appropriate legal counsel to make sure that we've checked every box and followed every path we need to follow to make sure that we have the most opportunity to protect our development rights. It's just taking some time with the town to get where we need to be.
Sam, do you have a sense of the cost for raising property?
$60,000 to $70,000 we believe will be the cost to take the building down.
And once we do have it down and we've maintained our developmental rights, the board at that time will continue to study alternative uses of it and whether it's to develop it for some purpose or to sell it or keep it until the right seller buyer comes along. So it remains a very valuable and strategic property. The decision by the board at the time was the right one, and we'll make a very good decision as to what to do with the property once it's been raised. Turning to the next question is from Peter Traeger. Will CSA consider a bylaws change prohibiting serving simultaneously on the board of CSA and ASPO, as he believed the optics as well as ethics should require this? CSA, I'm fairly certain, will not be taking up such a bylaw change, as we believe every member of the community should have an opportunity to serve on the CSA board. It's a difficult job, but it's a very rewarding one, and we would welcome anyone who's interested in serving to do so. If ASPO believes there's an issue with common representation, it should be for ASPO, which is a voluntary organization with limited membership, to make this choice. And so we are not going to do that. Next question is from Neil Goldsmith. Please provide an update and address the status in the Jill Jinks lawsuit that was filed against the referendum, and when plans have been made to address these charges. For those who may not be on Facebook, where the so-called Jill Jinks lawsuit has been discussed, Jill Jinks, who is a resident of Sea Pines, has filed a lawsuit seeking to overturn or stop the referendum from becoming effective and seeking a decision as to whether or not the resort is appropriately the successor in interest. The lawsuit is available for anyone who wants to read it in the public records in the federal district court in Columbia.
I believe it's Charleston.
It's Charleston. And if you're on Facebook, it's been available. We've been served with the lawsuit, which questions the validity of procedures followed in initiating a referendum that has been we know, overwhelmingly approved by over 87% of the property owners. We've hired excellent litigation counsel to represent us in this proceeding. We are confident that the actions we took with regard to the referendum were consistent with our covenants and our legal authority, and we fully anticipate that we will prevail in that matter. I should note that a motion for a preliminary injunction seeking to restrain CSA from recording the Fifth Amendment was filed by Ms. Jinks and her attorneys. The parties to that lawsuit got together, the attorneys got together and decided that no one would be served by hearing that lawsuit, that motion for preliminary injunction, and instead a stipulation has been filed by the agreement of all parties that CSA will not record the Fifth Amendment, now that it's been approved by the property owners, until such time as we've given notice, at least 30 days notice to the plaintiff, and if they want to, they can at that point go ahead and refile their motion for preliminary injunction. Our hope is that the lawsuit can be quickly resolved in our favor, and we will, as I said earlier, we will vigorously defend what we've done in that lawsuit.
Larry, I think that you stated Ms. Jinks is a resident. I don't believe she's a resident here, but she certainly is a property owner through her trust. I just want to make that correct. She's a resident of the state of Georgia.
Right. She is a property owner in Sea Pines, and I apologize. That's a very important distinction, I'm sure. Mr. Goldsmith goes on with the second question. How is this lawsuit affecting the referendum counting of ballots and delivery of results? Well, as we know today, it did not. We were able to announce the results, and the lawsuit has not been targeted to stop that. Is there a discovery that can be held so this lawsuit could possibly be withdrawn due to lack of evidence and correct information? It's too early to determine how the lawsuit will proceed, but I can assure you that our litigation team will pursue all avenues to assure that we prevail. A question comes from Ms. Cindy Harper. Why can we get Uber in Sea Pines but not Uber Eats? Sam, I'm going to turn that to you. And I guess that Uber Eats would include other food delivery services.
I don't know the answer to that, but I will tell you that Toby McSwain and his team have been working with Uber Eats, and the ball is in their court. And so we expect to have that resolved shortly, just like we have with Uber, where Uber can come in and out. But we are waiting on Uber Eats to get back to us at this point.
Thank you, Sam. We have a couple of questions from Bob Quinn. When does the board anticipate a determination of what to do with the gallery property? Well, as I noted earlier, Bob, until we confirm we've raised the building without impacting the developmental rights for the property, we will not be able to make any determination. And once we've taken those steps, we'll need to analyze all alternatives and make the judgment that will provide the most value for that very strategic property to CSA and CPONS. Next question from Bob Quinn. What is the board intending to do about increased traffic at Seapine Circle with a new 6-lane bridge and eliminating tolls on the Cross Island that will increase the already intolerable delay in getting out of Seapines? Bob, again, on any given day, it's good and it's bad. And that's part of, I think it's simply part of the life that we've all come to live in living in Seapines. But we have developed a task force that's working with the town of Hilton Head, led by our president, Sam Bennett, and our director, Bill Johnson. And I'm confident that they are working to get the most effective solutions in place for the benefit of our residents. Sam, did you want to add anything to Sam or Bill?
I would like to add that Mr. Kerry Corbett is Gay Entry Committee Chair, is on that task force with myself and Bill Johnson. And we've engaged a local engineering firm with a statewide presence that has an excellent relationship with SCDOT, Beaufort County, and the town of Hilton Head to work through that process with us. And we'll be bringing those results to those two committees in the future. And then we'll be taking those results to the town of Hilton Head and to Beaufort County and SCDOT with the solutions that we think are best for the Seapines traffic circle for our community.
Mr. Quinn asked another question, which is, the town is apparently responsible for and doing some maintenance on our drainage system. How much of the master drainage plan is town responsible for, and how much is CSA responsible for? Sam, I think that's something you can speak to.
I will do my best. The town is responsible under the master drainage plan agreement for emergencies that may happen inside the gates of Seapines, and particularly for the larger projects. The best example is the Lawton Canal pump station, the work that's going on now. The town has replaced and rebuilt all the pumps and is actively working to rebuild the generating, the house, the facility on site next to the farm that holds the emergency generator. That's a significant project. The town is picking up all the expenses of that. The town does not, however, provide any preventative maintenance for us. Will not go in and do the repairs for the systems that are preparing to fail or about to fail. And unfortunately, the town has limited resources when it comes to Seapines. They have to spread their dollar across the entire Hilton Head community. And so the CSA assumes the vast majority for repairs, emergency or otherwise, the costs associated with those when they happen. The town, and we do submit those costs for repairs back to the town to try and seek reimbursement when we make emergency repairs, but we are not always successful in being reimbursed with those. But to answer your question is, as it relates to the day-to-day, everyday, year-to-year, month-to-month, planning and taking care of the drainage system, that is CSA's responsibility. The town will handle the larger projects, and they will on occasion handle emergency projects for us within the resources that the town has available to them.
Thank you, Sam. The next question comes from Susan Harris. A couple of months ago, there was a discussion among the CSA staff and board about trolleys stopping at markers 25 and 26 to disembark visitors to the beach. A number of residents protested this as ill-advised due to traffic issues, access problems, and clogging these residential areas with day visitors. I hope this has been dropped and will not again appear on the agenda. Well, Ms. Harris, let me first note that there was a rumor that we had been discussing trolleys stopping at markers 25 and 26, but in fact, that discussion really was never a serious discussion as far as any of the committees or staff were involved. So while I can certainly not promise that discussion will not occur, if and when there's a reason to think that trolley stops like that might be appropriate, it is not an active matter as far as I know. Sam can confirm that.
No, that's absolutely correct, Larry. As we look to move down North Seapines Drive, South Seapines Drive, we have no plans at this point to put any trolley stops along that area.
Thank you, Sam. I know sometimes rumors get started, and then if you happen to have the pleasure of watching Facebook, they blow up into lengthy discussions about it. I can only ask that sometimes it's easier to ask CSA staff or myself, my chairman at CSACpines.com, a question, and you're more likely to get a factual response, which you may share on CPines, but you won't go into a lengthy diatribe about rumors and other things. Just an editorial comment. And the next is from Peter Cooper. Mr. Cooper asks, I'm not sure what is supposed to be covered in phase one, I presume of this project, but it seems to be off to an unusually slow start. At the current pace, it's hard to imagine the company is really going to accomplish much before it is halted for the tourist season. Sam, you want to comment on, I presume he's talking about North Sea Pines Drive.
I believe it's talking about North Sea Pines Drive, and I'd like to do, Russell Fredericks, I think you're still online. Russell, would you give us an update on where that is and scheduling, please?
Can you hear me, Sam?
Yes, sir.
Regarding North Sea Pines Drive, we are actively working out there. Obviously with we wanted to be cognizant around the holidays and so forth, but as you can note, there are substantial materials being brought in. The goal of phase one, especially with the uptick in activity in proximity to the Plantation Club and Sea Pines and Lighthouse Road area, our goal is to complete that length of roadway with the roadway realignment, drainage, and so forth, but before we move further down the road. And obviously, we want to be cognizant of overall activity moving into the spring, and certainly, do not want to be out on the roadway leading up and before the RBC. We do have a phase two plan for the fall, but this is a very extensive undertaking with a lot of logistics behind the scenes. We are working diligently to make the necessary progress over the coming weeks.
To answer Mr. Cooper's question directly, Russell, we believe that we're going to make that phase one as planned, and then we'll be prepared to handle phase two when next year, later in the third and fourth quarter of next year.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Russell, don't go away, because I have another question that I think you would be responsible for. This is from a James Nickel. I'm a new owner on Canvasback Road. Welcome, Mr. Nickel. Might you provide more detail around the nature of the project that you mentioned, Russell?
Canvasback Road is one of the oldest roads in Sea Pines and some of the oldest drainage in Sea Pines. There has been multiple drainage failures in Canvasback Road over many years. We were working closely with the town since I've started here in the last 3 years to come up with some solutions and to make these necessary drainage repairs. It certainly was not a complete replacement of the drainage system in that area, but what we refer to as point repairs. Several point repairs were made along the beach walk and other areas within the Canvasback road to mitigate road flooding that was taking place. So at this time, those drainage repairs have been made. There's one or two additional repairs that we need to look into as part of the North Sea Pines project to mitigate some other issues where it meets the Canvasback Road meets Sea Pines Drive. But by and large, the most significant issues in Canvasback have been addressed.
Thank you, Russell. The next question comes from Lisa and Carl Watry. Regarding the referendum, will we be assessed $600 extra per year indefinitely beginning in 2022? And is the assessment the same for all property owners, regardless of the value of their property? That is a $300,000 home versus a $2 million home. We just want to make sure we understand. I'll take the second part first. Our assessments under the covenants have always been flat assessments without regard to the value of your property. The only difference is an undeveloped property, it pays less than one that that's been developed. So yes, the $600 is applied the same across the board without regard to the value of your property. I know at one point when we were talking about the special tax district, we might have used an ad valorem approach, but using the 74 covenants for the assessment approach, it's a flat rate. In terms of whether it's assessed, $600 assessed indefinitely, first of all, it does not begin until 2022. So everyone has a year to plan for that initial $600. We did not impose a sunset on that assessment because we did for two reasons. One, when we looked out well beyond the 10 years, we could not anticipate whether the money would or would not be needed, although both of the studies that we were relying on to estimate even the 10-year calculations went well beyond 10 years. The hydrology study goes out 20 years, I believe.
25.
25 years for our drainage system, and the reserve study went out 30 years. And that's not surprisingly, because when you put a new roof on your house, you can pretty much assume that at some point over the next 10 or 15 or 20 years, you're going to need another roof. When you put in a new plumbing, you know, a new refrigerator, you know, you're going to have to replace it. So you have to keep assuming that even when you fix things today, they're not going to last forever. The fact is, we haven't fixed the 60-year-old things, and that's why we needed the extra money. The other reason we didn't put a sunset in is because under the covenants, each year the board gets to decide what the assessment will be. Now, for reasons that we are been limited to CPI alone, and our expenses have been growing more than the CPI, we've always maintained an increasing assessment at that CPI level just to keep up with our expenses. But in 5 or 10 years, if in fact the expenses have been less than we anticipated, or the things aren't breaking as fast as we expected, a board at that point can reduce the assessment or can actually eliminate it. And the people who are electing that board can make that choice by who they elect. And so rather than imposing a restriction on future boards, we thought it was better to leave future boards to make those decisions, in addition to the fact that we understood that it was going to go on forever. So that's why we didn't do a sunset, and that's why, in fact, it could go on indefinitely, but it is not obligated to. The last question we got is from a Sharon Ryan. Ms. Ryan asks, 10 new live oaks were planted this week along Plantation Drive. How much was spent on these trees? Did we get a guarantee? As many other similar trees recently planted have died. And she notes, while I love trees, I question this expenditure as we as a community have a lot of infrastructure needs, and it seems the money could be better spent. I'm going to turn this to Sam, who may have more information about this than I do.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Larry. Thank you for the question. The trees were actually planted by the Architecture Review Board through their landscaping fund. So I don't know the cost of those trees, but I do know that any tree that they have put in the ground, live oak, they have gotten a guarantee on it. And so anytime a tree has died from shock from being replanted, they have gotten that tree out and another one put in. So I can't answer the question on the cost, but I can tell you the question on the guarantee is there from the ARB.
And it's the ARB money.
It is the ARB money. It is not CSA dollars that were spent on the live oaks. Although we're grateful that they're very attractive. They're going to add a lot to Plantation Drive, and from now on and for perpetuity, we hope.
Right. And I think we all love trees, and certainly we can all make judgments as to what's more important. But for those of us who have lived here a long time, pre-Matthew, Plantation Drive, the canopy on Plantation Drive was one of the truly magnificent roads we had. And so hopefully these trees will grow back.
Just a comment, quick comment. Can you explain how the fee was generated through the ARB with the tree replacement fee? That's not money from CPON's residents, except for people that have replaced or took down trees.
Thank you, Don. That is correct. So whenever someone takes down a tree within our community, they are required to replace the tree, or if our replacement's not practical, there is a tree replacement fund that we have in place, the ARB has in place, and they are required to make a contribution to that fund to fund these trees. So that's how these trees have gotten put across our community. This is not, again, not part of the CSA assessment. Doesn't take anything away from safety, security, or infrastructure, but this is a fund that the ARB has in place that they use to replant trees across our community. Thank you, Mr. Sigmund, for reminding me of that.
That's the last question we have. I want to close just noting that what a really important day this is for the community, and a great day it is when we can get as large a turnout of residents and non-residents voting on anything. It's a terrific thing that the community is that interested in and willing to spend the time to figure out what they want. Getting an 88% vote in favor of any idea is also a great thing. I got a lot of letters from folks who absolutely had some concerns about the terms of the referendum, but I had almost no one say they didn't agree with the need. And so I truly am hopeful that even those who didn't vote for the referendum will come along and recognize that we're the direction we're going by fixing our funding requirements, by fixing our infrastructure, by revitalizing the community is the right thing, and that we can get together as a community and unify behind revitalizing Sea Pines to be the premier community on Hilton Head. It's going to take work, not only on critical infrastructure, but on other areas. There are problems that we face by the growth of the community. The number of homes are now much higher than they were 10 years ago. The number of homes being rented is higher, and we have more people. And we're going to deal with that. That will take some time, that will take some issues. But I hope that this is the beginning of a unified community towards making Sea Pines, again, what it was intended to be, the premier community on the island. So with that, I thank you for all your attention. So, Sam, closing remarks?
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Chairman. I do have one other thing I would like to ask the board and yourself, and I think I already know the answer. But with the announcement of this referendum, I would like the board's permission to completely and totally cease any work or conversation on a special tax district related to Sea Pines.
I can tell you that is not within my agenda, but so I think it's clear that was our promise to the community that was not to be before us. And I don't expect that to come before this board this year while I'm chairman.
It will not. Thank you. I just want to make that point, Mr. Chairman.
That's a good point to make. Thank you all for your attention, and I will see you at the next board meeting. Bye-bye.
Good job.